Hey, my name is David Buck, and in this video, we're going to learn how to use the masking tools in Lightroom Classic. The masking tools, or selection tools, are found in Lightroom under this button right here. But before we click on it, we got to figure out what on earth they are. So all the adjustments that we make in Lightroom affect the entire image. So they're called global adjustments. But with the masking tools, we can choose specific areas of the photo to make adjustments to, which is super awesome. Now, these adjustments are limited, as you can only change the same things that are in the Basic tab, plus a few extras. So what I'm really trying to say is that you can make any adjustment you want. You may just have to think about your process of editing a little bit differently, because you won't have the same sliders and tools available as you do through the Develop module. So masking equals selective adjustments. Now, inside these tools, there are a lot of ways to make a selection, and that's what we're going to look at first. Now, you can also open up the masking tab by pressing Shift-W. And that will open it up automatically. Now, there's a few things that you have to understand in here. This box right here is your control for your masking areas, or showing you what the selection is. The white areas are the selection, the black areas are not selected. You can press this button here to maximize the window, and you can press it again to minimize. They both have the same function, maximized or minimized, just you can navigate through them a little bit easier when it's bigger. So we're going to make a bunch of different masks here, just showing you the different types of selections that you can make. So when you want to make a new mask, you press this plus button, say create new mask, and then you're presented with a litany of options. So we're going to start with the simple ones first. And the simplest of them would be the brush. It is just a brush. Now, I just painted some red on there. Why is it red? Okay, so this show overlay button here will also show you, while you've got the mask selected, which area is selected. You can change the color of the overlay if you want to, but I like it red, so let's keep it there. But if you don't want to show it, you can unselect and it won't show you where the selection is. But as long as you understand what it is, it's very easy to use. So the brush can go bigger or smaller using the bracket keys. So if I rapidly press the bracket keys up or down, or hold Shift up or down, that's going to do the feathering of the selection. Or I can just choose the size of it there. And I always put my flow and my density to 100 so that wherever I'm painting, that's where it goes. Okay? Command Z, of course, will undo whatever you are doing. So create new mask, select my brush, I've got my size that I want, and I paint in the area that I want. Now keep in mind that whatever area is red, that's the area that's going to be adjusted by this selection of choices. And we'll go through the selection of choices in a minute, but we're going to cover first the different selection tools. But just to show you, that painted in area is the area that is changed and nothing else. Okay. Also interesting, while we're here, so we have the option to add. So we can add two different types of selections together. So I could paint another brush up here if I want, and that's going to add to it. Or I could subtract from that selection. So I'm going to select a brush, and I'm going to subtract this area right here in the middle. So I have total control over where I want to have selection or not have selection. And then if you hold down Option, then you get this button that changes the add and subtract to intersect. When I intersect, it allows me to select one option and then use the intersect to combine two different masks into the same adjustment. So if I choose the sky and I want to intersect with a luminance range of here, and it's only going to give me those luminance ranges that overlap the sky that I've already selected, and it's not going to include the ones down here in the reflection. So you can add those together with any different combination and really gives you full control over your masking selections. All right, option 2, we have, this one is a linear gradient. So where I start clicking, the direction I pull, it makes a straight line. If I make it just like that, it's going to be a very harsh straight line. If I click and pull, then it's going to make the selection feather or much softer. So when I make a change, it feathers through the entire image. I can also add gradients together. So if I want a gradient at the bottom, and then add a selection to it, and gradient each of the sides, I can do that. We have the radial gradient. So a radial gradient makes a circle. And just like the linear gradient, it has a feather zone and a full effect zone. So it will make a circle. But it'll also make an oval, a rotated oval. I can adjust the feather to make it a straight oval with no feather, or a full feather. I can also add a linear gradient, and I can subtract a radial gradient from the middle. Then when I make an adjustment, it's going to leave a spot in the middle where the linear gradient is. Another selection I have is a range, so either a color range or a luminance range. As we've learned in our other lessons, a luminance range would be the brightness value. So if I wanted to select based on these really bright highlights, guess what? You get all these really bright highlights. And you have a feather range of how much more brightness values you want. So if you want just those highlight areas, well, then I can take those down, or brighten those up. I have selection within just those highlight ranges, or I can take the top many percent of an image in a selection. I can also choose those bright ranges and then invert them so that now I'm adjusting just the darker ranges. I have a color range. So if I want to choose the color blue, in this case, which is prevalent through the image, then it will select all of the blue. And then I can make adjustments to just that color range if I want. So lots of selection options. Then I've got these 5 right here. Select subject, select sky, select background, select people, and objects. So this is a fairly new feature in Lightroom, and it uses some AI programming to be able to select different objects within your image without you having to worry about it, or without you having to think about it. So I'm going to switch to another picture here. If I wanted to select my couple, well, I select subject. So Lightroom is going to detect the subject, and look at that, it did an awfully good job of selecting my couple. Now, it's not perfect, but it's pretty darn good. Definitely good enough where I will use it often. But things like this here mean that you have to watch how much of this feature you actually use, because when you start to see the effects of these adjustments because you've used them, that's not good. If you're really wanting to be accurate with it, you could subtract, you could choose a brush or some of the other features, and you can brush out some of those areas. So just watch your selection edges to make sure that they're doing what you want them to do. Okay, so with one click, I've selected my subject. Well, guess what? I have the range of adjustment options now just on my subject. Within the people, if you click on one of them, underneath the person, you have the option to select their skin, body skin, eyebrows, whiteness of their eyes, their iris and pupil, lips, teeth, and hair. If you can't see how powerful this is, then everybody can see how powerful this is. So if I want to smooth her skin out, I could just choose her face skin, create a mask, lower the clarity and the texture, and then all of a sudden, in a few clicks. Once I have my subject selected, I can click these 3 dots right here. I can say duplicate and invert the mask. So now there's a new mask on the background. So I have one for my couple and one for the background. So if I wanted to create a separate editing effect, I want to darken the background and I want to brighten my subject, well, with just a couple of clicks, I can do that. Not bad for 2 or 3 clicks. Let's say then I wanted to take another color range here on the blues, and I want to make them less blue. So I'm warming them up, just that blue range. Well, goodness gracious. With just a few clicks, I'm getting a whole lot better. Now what if I said, oh, okay, I want to create a new mask and I want to select the background now. Okay, same thing that I was doing with the invert. I want to subtract from that selection a linear gradient up into the mountain and subtract a linear gradient down from the sky. And now I want to add some texture into the mountains. Maybe a little bit of clarity. Now how have we done? Not bad for just a few clicks. So you can see that stacking some of these options together and utilizing them together really makes a big difference. Okay, we've got a couple more selections here. So if I create a new mask here, so I can select my subject. So it could be a person, it could be a bouquet of flowers, it could be a car, it could be anything that it determines as the main subject of the picture. You can select the sky outright. So I can take this image here and I can say select sky, and it'll do a great job of selecting just the sky. Then I have adjustment ability over just the sky. Very cool. I can select people. So if I've got a group of people in a photo, I can select all of them at once. You notice here in the option, it has all of the people. So I can select 1 person, 2 person, 3 person, 4 person, or all the people. And you want the entire person? Yeah, I want the entire person. And I can create a mask from that and then make adjustments from there. Yay, I've got white people. The other option that I have is to select an object. So this object, I can paint over an object that I want to select, and Lightroom will do its best to figure out what that selection is, detect the object, and make a selection for me where I have options to do whatever I want to it. This is the kind of area where you got to watch out for your edges. You can see the adjustment into the sky, so you want to be be careful with those kinds of changes. Okay, so you can select a subject, a sky, a background, people, or objects that you decide using the AI filters, or you can use a brush, linear gradient, radial gradient, color range, luminance range, or depth range. Depth range you're only going to need for very specific photos that create a depth map in them, so probably not going to use it very often. And any of these selections you can use together, and you can add together, or you can remove from each other. So basically, you can use these to select whatever part of the photo you want in whatever way that you want. So now let's move on to what you can do with those adjustments once you've selected them. Within the people, if you click on one of them, underneath the person, you have the option to select their skin, body skin, eyebrows, whiteness of their eyes, their iris and pupil, lips, teeth, and hair. If you can't see how powerful this is, then everybody can see how powerful this is. So if I want to smooth her skin out, I could just choose her face skin, create a mask, lower the clarity and the texture, maybe a little bit more to taste, and then all of a sudden, in a few clicks, and then even more fun than that, I can copy that to other photos with faces in it, and Lightroom will do it automatically for me. Okay, now that I've got a selection on this particular image, I have my subject selected using the subject selection, and then the background selected through the invert and duplicate option. I have the option to make things brighter, darker. I can add or remove contrast. I can correct highlights or add more of them. I can deal with my shadows, whites. Remember, these are the different areas of the histogram. Blacks, which is the low areas. I can correct the white balance, so temperature and tint and tone. I can change the hue of the selection, either in big changes or in fine adjustment changes. So it moves a lot slower and a lot more carefully. I can adjust the saturation of the selection. I can add texture, clarity, or dehazing, or the inverse of that. I can add or remove sharpness, noise, moire, and I can defringe. Then I can click this button right here, and I can add any color over top of that selection. This is getting exciting. What if I selected a color range in the shadow region and then added a tone to it? Wouldn't that be the same as the color grading panel? And then I selected the luminance value of the highlight range and selected the opposite color. Now I can selectively split tone within the selections. This gets very exciting because the amount of options that you have are endless. You can have complete control, and then you can copy it to 30 other photos at the same time and let Lightroom do the work. So let's say that I have the background selected. I can turn it towards blue. I can add a blue tone to it, and I can, in a couple of clicks, change the background of the photo. Create a mask for just the skin, smooth her skin out. I can select the object of her wedding dress. Add some texture and some clarity to that, bringing up the shadows a bit because clarity darkens down some of those shadows. I can select the flowers in front, add some saturation. I can correct the darkness in her hair by selecting that, bringing up the shadows and bringing down the saturation. Not a bad change for a few clicks. What if I've got an image where I want to enhance the fall colors? I can select the background. I can add a red tone. I can subtract linear gradient. I can change the hue, bump up the saturation, bring down the blacks, and in just a few clicks, I've given them more fall. I can select my subject, brighten them up, select the rest, bring it down, make it a sunnier day, create a new mask, select her dress, get rid of the blue fringes, add some texture, some clarity. So the ability to be able to select any part of the photo you want, any way that you want, and then make any adjustment that you want. So with all these options available, the only limitation to be able to create incredible photos in Lightroom is your ability to see what needs to be done, or what can be done, or what's possible. So learn these tools, understand them, and go make better photos.